What is biodynamics? The Rudolph Steiner approach, how biodynamic spiritual gardening and natural ways of fertilizing, cross-pollinating and following moon cycles improves agriculture, getting to the spiritual heart of relationships with Gaia, Earth's life force, and the cosmos. At the heart of biodynamics lies recognition of basic principles at work in nature, which form the basis through which balance and healing take place. Matter is never without spirit. Spirit is never without matter. Rudolph Steiner. In conventional farming, you are taking more from the earth than you are giving back. In organic farming, you try to give back the same amount as you take out. In biodynamics, you give more back to the earth than you take out. Andrew Whitby. Biodynamics is a system of farming that follows a sustainable, holistic approach, which uses only organic, usually locally sourced materials for fertilizing and soil conditioning, views the farm as a closed, diversified ecosystem, and often bases farming activities on lunar cycles. Biodynamics is rooted in the work of philosopher and scientist Dr. Rudolph Steiner, whose 1924 lectures to farmers opened a new way to integrate scientific understanding with a recognition of spirit in nature. Biodynamic agriculture is a worldwide non-chemical agriculture movement which predates organics by 2 decades. But biodynamics is about more than avoiding chemicals. It actively restores the depleted life-giving forces of the planet, concentrating cosmic and earthly energies into special preparations that act like homeopathic remedies for the microbial plant and animal life on the farm. Please join us for a wonderful discussion on this topic. Joining us will be Shay Ryan, Earth Heroes, and Gary Kavanaugh, Gazza Cav. Hey everybody, welcome to Andromeda 7, your celestial gateway, your channel for community support, help, friendship, love, knowledge, and just plain being of value to others. Welcome back. If you're new to the channel, it's good to have you with us. If you're returning, thank you. And you know what time it is. It's Friday night, and it's time to feed your mind and grow your heart. And tonight we're talking about biodynamics. What an interesting subject. This is really fascinating stuff. I'm going to send it over to my friend and beautiful co-host, Teresa D'Antone. Welcome.
Thank you. Greetings, everyone. I tell you, you know what? You can take all this information and practically throw the kitchen sink at Lori, and she pulls a rabbit out of the hat every single time. Because I'm telling you, it was a lot of material, and she gives a lot of spiritual guidance and focus. So when she's creating the videos, she pulls out and extrapolates, gets to the heart of the matter, and really nails it. You really nailed it on that video.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. A lot of time and energy. Yeah, both of us.
A whole day that day to do that. And
yeah.
I don't know if people realize that, but when you're doing that kind of a presentation. And,
hey, if it looks easy, it really isn't. Okay.
Yeah. No, I just bombard her with information because, the team gives me information and I'm pulling that all together, and then we script it out and Lori makes magic out of it. So.
Well, thank you for saying so. That's really sweet of you.
Everything came together really well with that.
It did.
We're expecting Jeanie to try to come back in. Jeanie Griffin, she was just on and she's having some glitches, and she's going to try to come in and join us. So we'll just
watch for her.
Bring her in when she comes in. Yeah.
You bet.
Well, first of all, thank you, viewers, for your continued support. Really appreciate it. And hello, chat room. I'm sorry I can't type to everyone because I have some material to go over here. But first of all, I want to thank Gary, Gazza Cav's Backyard, for bringing this whole subject to my attention and our attention, because it's not something I've given a lot of thought to. I've done some organic farming myself in my little greenhouse.
Hey, you've done an amazing job. Don't cut yourself short on that, right, Gary? Yeah. I mean, it is amazing,
right.
Truly.
Amazing. Absolutely.
every year I add something new. Like I tried my own composting this year, and that was a nightmare, but it worked. It worked great. Hi, Jeanie. She's back.
Hi,
Good.
Jeanie.
And
Hey.
you know, and Gary brought this whole thing about biodynamics to me, and to tell you quite truthfully, folks, it's not something I ever looked into, and I didn't understand the difference between biodynamics and organic, and there are subtle differences, and biodynamics just goes deeper into that spiritual connection between us, the earth, and the cosmos. And so there's a lot of work that they do in their preparations for their soils and composting and fertilizing that just totally blew my mind when I started looking into it. And Gary sent us this 1.5 hour training video from Australia, and that just tells it all. So it's in our references in our YouTube description, along with a couple of other video clips. But that video is well worth watching if you haven't had a chance to yet. It's about 1.5 hours long, and there's all these students, and they're actually making the preparations and sticking their hands in the manure and all the kind of.
Wow.
Anyway, but it just, and they have a lot to do with the calendar, and so I'm thanking Jeanie too for sending us some information on the calendar, the Biodynamics calendar. And she's going to explain that a little bit later in the show.
Awesome.
And go through some of that. We'll do our best to do that. Shay Ryan cannot join us tonight. He had a scheduling conflict. He's on an in-person meeting somewhere, and he just lost track of the dates and times, so he can't be with us. But we did.
It's a shame.
Yeah, and because he has the global perspective, being from Earth Heroes.
Yeah, great
For those
guy,
of you
knowledgeable.
who remember him, he was on that show that we did with the Conscious Retreat, Healing Retreat with Mark Bright.
Mark Bright, yeah.
Yeah,
Conscious
so,
cartooning. Yep.
So hopefully we can get Shay back in the future. But we did include a 10-minute video clip of an interview that Shay did with Dr. Bruce Lipton. And Bruce Lipton, and it's an important video to watch. I'm just going to give you a couple highlights because Shay's not here. But Bruce Harold Lipton is an American developmental biologist noted for his views on epigenetics and cell biology. And he has an opening statement. And before we get there, I want to see if Lori wants to first do any chat room call outs, or do you just want me to keep going for a while?
I'll do a quick call out. It's been a while. Just wanted to say hi to Susie Q. Thanks for popping in. Really appreciate it. Grandpa Brian, good to see you. Give Luna a big old hug for us. Pearl Jones, always a pleasure. Glad you're here. Thank you. Milky Way Soul Tribe, Robert V. Such a pleasure. Good to have you with us. Lucky Smith, you're always here. Love that about you. Thank you for your love and support. We appreciate you very much. Truth Seeker, the same. Long-time viewer you are. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Johan Dancing Gypsy, it is so good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. I hope all is well with you. Yeah, thanks for being here. Appreciate that. Isby, you as well. Let's see. Prosperity, peace, love, and favor to you, brother. And lots of Bosto your way for you.
Yeah.
Posey, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you being here. And it's looking like that is, Max Vision. Hi, Max. Good to see you.
Hey, Max.
I love your remote viewing. Don't always comment, but I watch more than you know.
You should have known he was there.
She's in there actually doing the vision. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm shocked when I'm good when I do it. You know, when I guess it, and I'm like, oh, nobody knows. That's all right. Anyway, but hey, thanks everybody for being here in chat, and all the viewers who don't chat. That's all good too. So thanks.
Great, and welcome Dalibor and Jules. Jules from Down Under, another partner from Australia.
Yes,
appreciate
our
that.
Aussie friends.
Dalibor, thank you for coming in on short notice during the week.
Hello, everybody.
Sure, it's a pleasure to be here as always.
Yeah,
we appreciate you.
Actually got some something to tell us a little bit later about some things he's tried in the past with biodynamics. So
great
for organic gardening anyway.
Awesome.
Well, what I thought I would do is we like to have an organic flow, but there's so much material, and this subject is so complex yet wonderful. And so I want to give it just a little bit of framework so that we can work our way into the details. We'll start at a higher level.
Okay.
We'll drill down and get to the
You'll break it down.
break it
down.
Great.
You go, girl.
I'll start breakdancing.
Okay.
Might end up having no viewers if I do.
Uh-oh.
All right. So anyway, everybody on the panel here has contributed, and Gary has done so much. And if you've been watching his channel, Gazza's Backyard.
I got to get to his channel.
Gazza Cav's
It's in the description for you.
Yep. All these videos that we're referring to tonight are in the description for you guys to do on your own, some research and investigating on your own. But I can't wait till we get to Gary's and what he's actually applying on his property.
I know.
He told me, Teresa,
beautiful.
Very good that you did your fertilizer. Now you need to start a worm farm. And I'm like, oh my God. I hate worms. Okay, but they're necessary, and they have a real synergy with Earth. So, anyway, the interview with Bruce Lipton that Shay did, that 10-minute clip. He wrote a book, The Biology of Belief, and he claims that beliefs control human biology rather than DNA and inheritance. He has these rather contentious claims that people just don't buy into, and they call him a crackpot, but he really isn't. He's brilliant. He even won a Peace Prize.
Yeah.
He's really intelligent. He wrote some books here.
I never heard that.
Sometime in the 1980s, he rejected atheism and came to believe that the way cells function demonstrates the existence of source, existence of a creator, existence of a God. He wrote The Biology of Belief, Unleashing the Power of Consciousness, Matter, and Miracles in 2005. He wrote Spontaneous Evolution, Our Positive Future and a Way to Get There from Here in 2010. He wrote The Honeymoon Effect, which is the science of creating heaven here on Earth in 2013. And then in 2015, he wrote a 10th anniversary edition of The Biology of Belief. And in this video with Bruce, he says, believe it or not, you might not realize this, but we are currently living in and in the midst of a catastrophic geological event. And it's not going to come from volcanic eruptions and earthquakes and floods and fires and meteor strikes and things like that. It's going to come from the way humanity thinks about the environment and the ecology. That we're bringing ourselves, that humanity is bringing themselves to their very knees by the way we treat the planet. He went on to note in that video that in the past decade, we have depleted approximately 1/3 of our ocean's resources. He said within the next 2 decades, we probably won't have very much left in our oceans at all. And he went on in that video to talk about other things that we're doing that's taken us out of synchronization with the Earth. He says we as human beings have created so many structures, so many organizations that work against, even though we're technologically advanced in many ways, our very structures that we've implemented globally around the world prevent us from having the synergetic relationship we once had with Mother Earth and the planet. And he says if we don't start changing the way we think about how we work with the Earth, things aren't going to get any better, and there's not going to be a much of a world to come back to after the end of this event. So he says you're not just shifting your thinking to help yourself spiritually grow and develop and get a higher consciousness. That higher consciousness has to include all of the organisms, living, breathing, conscious organisms of the Earth itself. And you'll hear many members in our community say they've gotten downloads from Gaia. Help me. Help me. Make it, you're one of them, Jeanie, and I speak to Great Mother all the time.
I had a healing.
Yes.
I had a healing. Sorry. Yeah.
No. Yeah, you did. And so people are hearing this message, and other channelers and other people we know in the community are getting the same message, she's pissed. Because we have raped our own planet of all of its natural resources, and we're not giving back that which we have taken. And that is the very heart of biodynamics. And that is what Steiner was saying so long ago when he addressed those farmers that Lori mentions in the video, is with biodynamics, having that spiritual connection with the cosmos and the organisms of the earth and understanding how to work with them to help them will help us sustain ourselves. And without that connection, and we're breaking off that connection, we're not giving back. In fact, in organic farming, we are giving back some of which we take, but we should be giving more back to the earth. So Egypt is a primary example of that. And I want to throw a couple of quick statistics at you all. I know you don't like statistics any more than I do, probably, but
they are what they are.
It'll help give a good.
I like them.
Yeah, it'll help give a good frame of reference here. Oh, by the way, Bruce went on to say that holistic solutions, practices, and applications on a global scale is what is needed for us to make this shift for a better world. There are many types of programs for homesteading and organic farming and biodynamics, amongst many other types of initiatives that are currently underway, which Shay Ryan deals with Earth Heroes. He can tell you more about those organizations and what they're doing to improve the world. But let's see. There are only a little over 5,000 farms encompassing more than 400,000 acres that are certified as true biodynamic farms in 60 different countries around the globe. That's not much. You see, organics caught on really well, and it's been growing and increasing. You'll see more and more organic products. But biodynamic farms are still very small because there's this, these people are hippies, they believe in all these weird, wacky spiritual things, and it's not a real science, and so there's nothing to it. Oh, yeah? Well, these farms are producing some of the best, most nutritious foods, and they're fully self-sustainable. So that's a lie or an unfair assessment. By 2014, there were more than 2.3 million organic farmers in the world, 13% more than the previous year, yet still very few involved in biodynamics. Since at least 2013, India has the most organic farmers, followed by Uganda and Mexico. But India's exports of organic produce have risen by 25 to 35% in recent years, and the domestic organic consumption is up by 40%. So they're also exporting a heck of a lot. 3/4 of the world's organic producers are from Asia, Africa, Latin America. So Asia, 40%, Africa, 26%, Latin America, 14%. And in Asia, they have dedicated 47% of their land for organic gardening, including cereals, oil, seeds, textiles, green fodder, medical plants. They dedicated another 15% of their land use for permanent tree crops, Gary, including coconut, tea, coffee, and tropical and subtropical fruits. 47% of the organic farms in Africa, 47% of the organic farms in Africa are under permanent tree crop cover, such as olives, tea, coffee, cocoa, nuts, and tropical and subtropical fruits. 19% of the land is for land crops, including oil seeds, textiles, medicinal plants, cereals, and pulses. Egypt, which we're going to talk about a little bit more in depth about, is currently transforming huge portions of their mostly desert environment back into agricultural centers that they once had thousands of years ago. But they're using biodynamics to do it, which involves organic farming techniques and practices. But they've got that spiritual connection. Leave it to Egypt, Nearly all of the certified organic produce from Africa is earmarked for export, with Europe being the major importer. Now, can you imagine that? So in Latin America, for example, 67% of their organic farms is permanent pasture. Mexico exports organic produce to Europe, North America, and Japan, sending them products that cannot be grown in those countries. Okay? Mostly tropical fruits, coffee, cocoa, sugar. Here's the sad part of this news, folks. There are only a little over 5,000 farms in the United States of America. 400,000 acres only that are certified as biodynamic. Okay? Actually, that's around the world. There's 60 countries around the world. So I told you about the organic farms, but there are only 5,000 biodynamic farms.
Yeah.
Spread across
few and far in between.
Right. In America, there are a total of 170 biodynamic farms. 170. And 75 of those are in California. And there's only one certification company that certifies biodynamic farms. There's only one in the United States. It's the only one. And they've only certified 6 farms because of their stringent requirements for certification. And they don't it's because they have this mindset against biodynamics being a hippie, new age spiritual crap. And it isn't crap because we have the results to show it. So, but that's what we're up against. We're up against a lot of people who want to poo-poo this whole idea. And Egypt is transforming its desert, its entire desert, using biodynamics. And what they're doing is kind of fascinating. Jeanie sent a video. You'll see it in the YouTube description. It's a 10-minute clip. Take a close look at it because they have a company called Sekem, S-E-K-E-M, who's dumped about $20 billion into an initiative in the past few years to bring about and restore farming and agriculture to Egypt, building these communities along the Nile like they used to have thousands of years ago. And they're finding a way to make it work with their economy, their social systems, their education systems. They're finding a harmony and a balance between their economic plans. They're folding it all in there, and they're building schools around this, living quarters and living centers. They've got classes in farming and animal husbandry. They've
healthcare.
Healthcare. Oh, yes. Healthcare is another big one. So it goes beyond just growing a farm with organic products. It's building whole communities that change the way people think about the structures, the very structures that have held us back for hundreds of years. And America is not on the bandwagon, but we're a great recipient of things that Asia exports to us, India and other countries. We're just not producing it that way ourselves. In fact, our farming industry, at least around where I live, the farmers are retiring, they're dying off, and their children are off doing other things and don't want to take over the farm. They're just not interested. And there's a lot involved in converting your farm into biodynamics, which we'll find out a little bit later because there's a lot of preparation. But without that kind of initiative in the United States, we're pretty much behind the 8 ball compared to some of these other countries.
Yeah.
Right? So the things that Gary's doing so it starts in a garden, as Jewel says. It starts in small communities and it grows out. And that's what Egypt did. It started it small and it spread out. And that's what they did in Asia and some of these other places. Now, it's unfortunate that some of the products that these countries are producing with biodynamics are not available to their own people because they're exporting it because their government is trying to make money off of it.
Well, see, the government is the main problem in this whole thing, I would say, because the reason why you don't have that much biodynamic farming in the United States is because of all the red tape, and that's why a lot of the farming sector is getting out of farming because simple compliance with all the laws is just next to impossible, and it's also makes it unprofitable, because by the time you give all the, let's say you're doing pig farming or whatever, by the time the pigs get all their required shots, and medications and all this that they have to give them, then you're at break even.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's the U.S. government pays a lot of lip service to this, but they don't do it in actuality. The actual laws are very much against any sort of biodynamic farming.
That's true. Yeah.
Exactly, and it's like a major roadblock, and you've got these successful
See,
farms.
and why does it work in Egypt? Because Egypt doesn't really have a government. If you have been to Egypt and if you see it, it's they have
not
no taxes.
regulated.
They have no taxes,
That's
but
the future.
they have no social security. They have no social security.
That's the future.
They have no national health care system, no education system, nothing. It's as third world gets.
Yep. But what they've done and what they're on the road, well underway to doing, now they're pouring tons of money into it, but they managed to somehow do what folks in Jules's area have done. They're saying to the government, "Hey, we're not putting up with this anymore. We're the people. We're going to put these structures in place. We're saying goodbye to the old system. Here's the new system, and it's built around agriculture. It's making the biodynamics the cornerstone for everything that they build from there, and they are producing crops like crazy." So anyway.
Well, and with biodynamics, they're putting more back into the soil than what they bring out. So that's fascinating to me, because organic, they take it out and they put it back, but biodynamics puts more than they're getting out of it, and that's what's fascinating, and how they're doing that. Yeah.
Now there's parts of different. USA is not alone in this, but to give you an example, more than 90% of Egypt is infertile desert land, right?
Yeah.
Roughly
97%.
97 now?
Yeah.
Okay. More than 80% of their water resources are used for that purpose. And so they don't have enough water to cover the needs of the country. And you think, why not? The Nile's there. That's how they did it before. Well, a dam has been built. And that dam that was built by another group, another country, has kept them from having. Exactly. So you can see some parallels to us here in this country as to what's going on. They have flooding and wastewater management issues. Well, we do too in certain places, and we have drought all over our country. Which is, and then we're affected by some climate change, but we have seen that here in our country. So the rise in sea level is, for instance, a direct result of global warming, according to the Egyptians. Thereby, the Nile Delta is already subsiding 3 to 5 millimeters per year, and a rise of 1 millimeter would flood 1/4 of the Nile Delta. More than 10% of Egypt's population would lose their homes. So they have implemented a way of irrigating their crops and using the mulch and the composting practices and biodynamics to keep the moisture in the soil so that it requires less watering. And you're going to find out as we get into the preparations here later and what Gary's been working on as to why this is so important. Because when you're in a dry location and you don't get a lot of rainwater and you don't have an easy way of irrigating, there's other things that you can do to bring moisture to that soil to activate the organisms in that soil. A lot of people don't realize it. They go, I don't have enough rain and I don't have an easy way of irrigating, and all my crops are drying up. You implement biodynamics and you will find out that you don't need as much water as you think. So anyway, having said all that, that's the first few minutes, the first segment of the show was to give you the big picture. And now we're going to talk about exactly what is involved with biodynamics, what these preparations are. And we'll start with Gary, because he's been working with all kinds of things from permaculture to composting and worm farms and everything else. And although, Gary, you haven't been working with all of these different fertilization preparations, but you have done quite a bit. So why don't you tell us your story?
Yeah, how you got into that too. What drives you to do this?
So when we first came onto the property, and it was just clay. It was just, there was nothing, and the soil was completely dead, no worms. They took away the topsoil and replaced it with this powdery stuff. You can't even call it soil. And so I just tried to remove as much as I could, and started bringing in some soil from the council, which is on the side of the road. And so I dug into the bankment and set up some just little squares of gardening, and then I filled the whole property with just mulch around it. And yeah, and then over time the mulch broke down and created soil over the.
So you turn the clay into vibrant, viable soil to grow other.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
through just mulching, yeah, just getting lots of mulch, and I got it all free from the council just up the road, so it was really, really awesome, yeah.
And now you're working with worms, like a worm
farm? And so it took 5 years for it to all break down to make soil. So I had to I just used seaweed fertilizer, and that seemed to work really well. But now I just want to not buy anything, and so I bought 2 worm palms, and so all our leftover, instead of going into the compost, now goes into the worm farm. And yeah, so I'm sort of 90%. I still buy a little bit of seaweed, but as I'm feeding everything, I just put a little bit of seaweed and worm tea into the worm tea.
Wow, fascinating. And what kind of plants do you grow? What do you typically grow? Everything, huh?
Yeah, just everything. I've got broccoli, cabbage. I've got capsicums in the ground. Chilies. I've got more chilies this year than before. And then I've got my capsicums, which I put underneath my eaves over the winter time. And they still grow, but they're just probably half the size of if it was grown during summertime. But it's under eaves, gets the sun, so, and tomatoes as well.
Yeah, so you produce a lot of food. You must have a surplus. What do you do with the extra food?
Oh, we just we actually give a lot of it away. We have lots of friends around, and my son.
So friends, neighbors, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Anything left over, and like at the moment we've got a phenomenal amount of mulberries, and so we're just making lots of mulberry jam. And just giving them away. Yeah, we're not even adding sugar into it, so it's sugar free, but it's sweet enough.
Nice. How do you feel by eating all these types of foods that you're growing? How is your physical? Are you noticing any difference with your diet?
Oh, definitely with the diets. I used to be really unhealthy. It didn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but now there is a big difference. I don't eat as much, which is pretty cool. And it's it's very satisfying just going into the garden and getting the night's
yeah, like
dinner.
What are we gonna have for dinner tonight? Well, I'll grab this, and this, and there we go. You're cooking. That's
absolutely.
Great. Yeah. Even just a tomato plant in your backyard, I mean, there you go. You got tomatoes for a whole season. So why not?
Yeah. If you can put them in buckets, they grow upwards.
Sure.
It doesn't matter if it goes on balconies, it's something you start small, doesn't matter.
Yeah. What actually got you into wanting to do this? What triggered your passion
my wife,
for this?
Yeah, my wife is really healthy, so she was always into organics. So and we were buying organics, and it was very expensive, and so I thought, well, I can grow it, and
So she's very happy.
Oh, very,
She can
very
go
happy.
into the garden and get what she wants, huh? And then, of course,
Yeah,
she
yeah.
participates, I'm sure.
You can
and
see
help.
her herb closet, Lori.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So do
Mm.
you grow any kind of teas or anything like that?
Sorry?
Teas? Any kinds of teas? Like
Tea. Oh,
drinking
tea. Yeah.
tea. Yeah, sorry.
As in people.
Yeah.
We just got, you know, mint and just the normal herbs. Yeah, nothing we really.
Perfect.
So we got chamomile, and then we've got it's a rose, and it's a really small rose, but the scent is really strong, and when you put it into your tea, it's quite a nice flavor.
Yeah.
That one.
Mm-hmm.
That one there.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And we're
The
going to
one I
find
use
out.
for my teas.
We're going to find out how important that chamomile is later on to biodynamic soil preparations too. Dandelions and all kinds of plants. But now, Gaza, you haven't gotten to the point yet because you don't live on a farm. You actually live in a neighborhood housing community. Yeah. So you have done all of this in a regular neighborhood housing community. If you had a small farm, you'd probably have your chickens and your ducks like Jeanie. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are you maybe working towards that, Gary? Are you maybe working towards something like that?
Yeah, we would love to do that. So shortly we're thinking about selling the property and then moving more into the country and just buying a bigger section. Because we're it's only 630 square meters, which isn't enough. Yeah, I'd like a bigger property.
Yeah,
but he grows everything.
yeah, and give it away. So you don't need a lot of space because a lot of stuff grows upwards. So, which is good.
Yep.
But 600 meters, that's a huge property, you know, for just a garden. Because, you know, my garden that I did over here at this property was 6 by 14. That's 84 meters, and it was way more than I could handle or that I could consume. Like when it was growing, you know, you basically have to keep consuming it or canning it or doing something with it. So just like you, Gary, I wound up giving most of it away to friends, families, neighbors, that sort of thing. But you know, 84 meters is way more than one person can handle. You know, at least a person like me.
Yeah.
Pa Joe says grocery store in the backyard.
It is.
Yeah.
I've got 14. I've got I think it's 14 fruit trees on the property. So
yeah, I have 6. I have 6, but it's not in that section that I mentioned, the 84 meters. It's my whole property is about 800 meters. You know, so
I just grow it along the fence line. That's all you need to do.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. Gary,
don't let them get too big.
What practices have you in terms of biodynamics? Are you following the cosmic planting calendar for the moon, the lunar cycles?
Yeah, I've already put down my 500. So I've only done it once because I went to the mixing. So I learned all about putting it into the water and mixing it for an hour. And we all had a turn, and you have to swirl it and then swirl it this way and swirl it this way. Yeah, for an hour. So, but there was a group of us, so it was fine.
500? Did you say 500?
Yeah, 500.
That's working with the cow's horns, right?
Yeah, that's the cow. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's going to be fun when we go through. We're going to go through these preparations. Cool. We're going to go through these and let you jump in, and Jules too, if she has it there. So
I used to work on more about Jules too.
I used to work on a biodynamic dairy and all the milk and everything, and I used to be there when they did all the preparations with the cow horns. And so I don't do that on my property. I just use my intention. But let's get back to Gazza.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. To actually. It's
just intention.
Yeah, the milk. Honestly, the milk. There is a difference in flavour. A big difference between your normal organic and the biodynamic.
The cream is like this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. Wow. It's amazing. Yeah. Yeah,
Now,
and the eggs
Jules
are
brings
just
up,
amazing. Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Jules brings up an
Yummy.
important point here, you guys, because there's two different perspectives on this. The folks that are really into the farming with the biodynamic practices, they acknowledge what Jules just said. It's all about intent.
Mm.
But
My dad-
they're
just-
taking organic material broken down from nature itself. Tree branches,
Mhm.
flowers, stems, anything they can get their hands on. Oak trees, tree bark,
Everything.
petals of different kinds of flowers. All of these, and manure from their own cattle, okay, their own farm animals, including waste products from ducks, geese that they have on the farm. Jeanie can tell you about that. Also, the chickens, and they're putting all this into their compost. But they're also making these preparations that have organisms in them that can be put back into the earth to interact with the organisms that are being depleted. So instead of throwing chemicals down and fertilizers and all kinds of stuff to bring life back to the soil or to put more phosphorus into the soil, they're doing it in a natural way. So yes, there's an intent, there's ceremony, there's ritual involved in some of this too. But they're following Earth's gravitational, they're following energies from different planets like Jupiter, Venus, and all these cosmic.
I don't do that.
Yeah,
Alignments,
The-
cosmic
The
alignments.
retrograde. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and
Retrograde
so they're
transition.
getting fantastic results. And so, did we want to show them what some of these preparations are, Gary? Because I did pull it up with a detailed description of each preparation, pictures of it. Did you want to you want us to do that and go into the preps?
Yeah, if you want, yeah.
Okay, all right. So let me do
Do it, Teresa.
huh?
Do it, Teresa.
You all jumped in between. It was a lot to pull together, but I think I got this. So hey, hang on just a second. Let me hit a share screen here.
Yeah.
Hang on just a second. Because for folks who don't know anything about this, I knew nothing. I was just like, are you kidding me?
You want me to do what?
You want me to do what with my hands? What, where? My hands where? All right. I'm using my notes. Let me pull those out of there. And
I grabbed a whole heap of my chicken manure yesterday to put with something. I just grabbed it with my hand.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah. I usually put it in a shovel and put it in the wheelbarrow, but I need a lot more than a handful.
I mixed it up with some other stuff and just created as some soil.
All right, what you're looking at here is a photograph of 6 different jars, and these are the biodynamic compost preparations and manure preparations for putting some of these nutrients back into the soil. And it only takes a small amount of these highly concentrated organic materials to treat, I think they said anywhere from 1 ton to 3 tons of compost. So that's a lot of compost. So that's how potent these organic materials are. And you'll find out why in just a moment. But some of these compost preparations use planetary forces within your own manure, and it involves breaking down the organic matter and driving that into humus formations or humus formations.
There you are.
Then when added to compost manure and even liquid manure concentrates provide optimal growing conditions. So 15 tons, I'm sorry, this set of preparations you're looking at in these little jars treats up to 15 tons of manure and compost.
Wow.
It contains
Incredible.
fermented plants that increase proliferation of beneficial fungi, jewels, and bacteria. Stabilize nitrogen, attracts trace elements, and stimulates the silica, calcium, potassium, phosphorus, and sulfur processes.
Yeah. Hallelujah, the periodic table.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the first vial, or the first jar, I should say, let me close out this one and bring up the picture. Okay. It's a plant called yarrow. YARROW, right?
Mine's flowering at the moment.
You grow your own too? Okay. Well,
Pink and white.
they're not importing this stuff. They're actually growing fields of these components on their property. That's what they mean by self-sustaining. Okay, so they're growing fields of these plants to make up these preparations. They take tiny heads of yellow flowers with the stalks removed, and they pack them into a stag's bladder in early summer. Now get to the reason why they do that. The bladder is sewn shut. The stag's bladder is sewn shut and hung somewhere above the head height in the sun for the summer. Now, Lori, if anybody wants to break in, let me know because I can't see you all.
You're fine. Mm-hmm.
The yarrow allows planetary forces coming from Venus to enter the earthly realm. The plant is able to attract and pull in a wide area of surrounding trace minerals like lead, copper, and magnesium in extremely dilute quantities into its living processes. So it's a magnet for these things. It provides a good balance of trace minerals into the growing and nutrition cycle of plants. Now, somebody asked me why they use the stag's bladder. Oh, please. First of all, plants do not necessarily have the connection to the cosmic forces as they come from the plant kingdom. And we need to tap into the animal kingdom, they say, to get this higher level and relationship with the astral influences.
That's all shifted.
Okay. The plant influenced from the surface whereas the animal is inflicted by the astral forces and specifically creating organs that create the living animal. A stag's bladder is used because of the function of the bladder within the animal. One of the purification and specifically excreting concentrated forces, a bladder is used for its detoxing and cleaning ability. So this is
sterile. It's sterile.
Go ahead.
It's sterile.
Yeah, sterile.
It was originally sterile, so it.
Yep. So that's yarrow. That's in and a yarrow, and they labeled each one of these. They call this BD 502, Biodynamic Preparation 502, which is yarrow petals. Okay. The next one is 503. 503 is chamomile. So let me bring that up. I don't, I'm not sure if. There you go, chamomile. Okay. Now, it's concentrated compound made from the German variety of chamomile. Okay, so it's not just any chamomile; it's German, Dalibor.
We have. That's what we have here.
That's
what we have. Yes,
awesome.
ma'am.
Too hot here to grow chamomile. Too hot.
Let's see. Chamomile provides nitrogen balance and helps with the digestion in the compost material to stimulate plant growth. So it's not just your worms, Gary, munching away at the compost. It's chamomile too. All right. The next one is called BD 504, and BD 504 is stinging nettle. Are you all familiar with stinging nettle?
Yes.
Stinging nettle. Bring that
Good
up.
for getting rid of arthritis by whacking wherever the arthritis is.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, it brings it to the surface.
Yeah. Stinging nettle is one of the primary herbal essential oils. It's very,
good
it's
for
prominent.
Good for the body, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of uses for it. If you even process the stinging nettle, if you've got a rash from stinging nettle, if you have the tincture or a cream that you've made from the stinging nettle, it'll take the sting out and clear it right up like within a day.
Nice.
Wow.
Well, let's see what they're using it for the soil. Let's see. Great uprightness and strength of form, specifically shaped by, drum roll, Jules, silica. BD504.
Upright little bricks.
It's used for iron radiation in the soil. Iron radiation in the soil, and the plants as a tonic for strengthening plants and improving the porosity in the soil itself. This is what this guy was saying, Bruce Lipton. Understand, and this is what Steiner was saying, is understand that what's good for your human body is just as good for the plants, okay? Why not treat the plants as nice as you treat your own body? But no, we've our bodies and the plants. So go ahead, Jules. What were you saying?
No, it was Jeanie.
Thank you. I was wondering if you could probably use these types of herbs, because we have the German chamomile all over the place. I'm wondering if you could use it all for, like, as a cover crop, like on and off season. Yeah. Jules. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's
too hot. We can't use that as a crop here because it's just too hot.
But I'm wondering you could use another crop like the yellow.
I've got yarrow and tansy. I've got enough. I've got enough in my yard, love.
Cover crop.
Yeah. All right,
that's important. Okay.
All right, BD505, you guys. This is called BD505. It's oak bark, finely grounded. It combats plant disease. It mediates excess lunar forces. It's high in calcium sources, and when used regularly, it provides a complete balance of soil pH. They even put wood bark in their compost too, but this is a supercharged, finely grounded, and they mix it in this water, and then they add it into their compost. And we're not talking tons of water here. We're talking a bucket of water that they dump this stuff into. And it treats a whole 13 tons of compost, okay? Wow. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
All right, the next one is going to be dandelion. And that one, we all know dandelion.
I like dandelion.
Yeah.
I drink dandelion tea. It's not the most flavorful thing to drink. It actually tastes like dirt, you guys, but little lemon and honey. That was
because I told you about it.
Yeah, you sure did. And I got some and I was like,
add cinnamon and cardamom pods.
I was like,
cinnamon and cardamom pods to it.
There you go.
Cinnamon and cardamom, and that'll really give it a boost.
Okay.
Oh, it sure would.
Dandelion wine.
Oh yeah.
No.
My aunt, when I was a little child, used to pay me 1 penny for every dandelion I picked out of her front yard, and she had a huge front yard.
Wow.
And she paid me 1 penny for every dandelion, so she could make dandelion wine. And then I'd run up to the store and get an ice cream cone, or I'd get bags of candy, because back then in the day you only paid.
I only got $1 for your whole front yard.
Actually, the dandelion, even though most people think of it as a weed, but it's actually one of the most helpful herbs that you can find in your own garden. All parts of the plant are useful. For the most part, it's really good for liver ailments. It's a good liver tonic. And the roots also help cure cancer. There was a gentleman that I saw his video. He had a dream where an angel told him that he has to eat dandelion roots, and he started doing that, and he was cured.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
starts in the garden.
This creates a balanced plant and soil synergy for health and growth related to the fullness, uprightness, and strength of the plant, not unlike the nettle. It stimulates relation between silica and potassium processes, so that silica can attract cosmic forces to the soil. So the two go hand in hand. The stinging nettle and the dandelion work together to do that in the soil. All right, let's move along here to valerian. Okay.
Valerian.
Yeah, this is BD 507, and it's included in there in 2 little bottles, very highly concentrated, beautiful plant. A perennial herbaceous plant with triangular or prism-like leaves, which has a very distinct vein structure. The triangular shape, now get this, you guys, all right, Jules, here we go with geometry, Dalibor. The triangular shape of the leaves indicates its relationship with light and light forces. Flowers are
really?
Yep. The flowers are steeped in rainwater and left in the sun to create a liquid form of the plant. The liquid is then stirred by hand in a vortex for 20 minutes and sprinkled over the compost heap or manure mixed. Just like you take a wand or a brush and flick it. They just sprinkle it. It's known as the warmth giver. It enables the phosphate activating enzymes in the soil to bring phosphate into the plant realm. All right. There's another one here that shows her with a bucket. Now, see how small this bucket is? They took those vials, dumped it into that bucket of water, stirred it for 20 minutes in a vortex. And Dalibor, I'm not sure what the significance is of the vortex. Maybe you could.
Well, there's a couple of there's a lot of significance to it. First of all, what it does is it aligns the magnetic field of the water because it's circulating in only one direction. You're not supposed to switch it like clockwise and counterclockwise. You're supposed to do it just one way. Same way as when you're trying to magnetize like a piece of metal. You're only supposed to do it one way. That's what that does. It makes the structure of the water, the bonds between the oxygen and hydrogen, more symmetrical.
Okay. Well, here she's sprinkling it on the compost pile. Tree limbs, tree branch, bark, grass cuttings, whatever you could throw in your compost pile. And here she's dumping some of it into the liquid manure mixture, which is very important because we're going to see what happens and what they do with this manure. And see, it's a small bucket of manure. It's not a lot, okay? They're going to make these little preparations out of the manure, okay? All right, so we'll close that out. And then we have a preparation dealing. Now those were the 6 different jars we talked about, and they're gonna create something with that. If I go into let's see, 8 and 9. Hang on a second. Now here they're working that material that she poured into the manure with their hands. Okay. Yep. They work it into the manure, and then they create these cannonball or baseball size clumps, little balls, and they see she's putting holes in the compost, and she's shoving these balls of manure that are treated with all 6 of these preparations into holes in the compost pile. And sometimes they just dump them into liquid manure for other purposes. I'm not sure exactly what, but you can see how they're just shoving this down into the compost. And they go out there every so many days and they stir that compost mix, you guys. They take pitchforks and they stir it and stir it and stir it. Okay? So they're constantly moving it around, and these little balls of manure treated with these preparations breaks down into the compost over time. So that's what they're doing with it. Okay? Now the next one here, we have these horns that we were talking about a little while ago, you guys. I'm going to bring up the pictures of the horns.
I was really confused by the horn stuff.
I know you were.
I'm like, what the heck is that all about?
Sounds kind of horny.
And it is, my friend.
And then you are.
Kind of way.
And you are.
In a shitty kind of way. All right. Horn
Loaded man, you are.
It's called Preparation BD 500. It's not part of the 6 jars. This is only done twice a year. The horns are used twice a year. They're the polar, and the reasons they're used are the polar opposite of one another. One mixture is used in the spring and summer, and buried in the ground and brought up in the autumn. The other is used in the autumn, buried in the ground and brought up in the spring, because they have different components to them. So this is horn manure BD 500, specially fermented, high-quality cow manure preparation that has been put into cow horns and buried under the earth for the winter period.
So it's fermenting in the ground, in the dirt, being buried. Okay.
Yes.
That's it. Yep.
Yes. It is important to use only preparations that have undergone a complete transformation underground. This preparation is used to build soil structure, humus, and promotes soil microlife, thus enhancing the plant's uptake of nutrition. It is sprayed towards evening as rough water droplets directly onto the soil prior to sowing and planting. So they walk through the fields and they just sprinkle it onto the field.
I'm wondering which angelic being told Mr. Steiner to do that.
Well, it does get into that. Just give me a minute. It does get into that. I'll explain. It encourages healthy root growth. It assists the plant in finding...
Nothing like a good horn with a root, hey?
Yeah. Mediates the terrestrial forces of life. Okay. Now, this is the one with the manure. There's another one called BD 501 using the horns. It uses crushed quartz crystal, which has a very precise structure that absorbing and radiating light. Now, you know, I use crushed crystals in my planters, right? In my container gardens. I put them in every plant, the crushed crystal, and it works. And it was Brian Barnett that came to me and gave me that information. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Whoops. Lost her. Crushed crystals. I used to do that when we were growing flowers in the flower bed. And I would take just a bunch of crystals and just toss them out there. I don't know why I did it. I just thought, oh, these will look nice. But I didn't know there was a significance to it like that.
Yeah, a lot of people have reported success and increased yields and better crops by interpolating crystals into the dirt.
Silica.
Silica. It's not just the silica, but it's also the unique vibrational frequencies of each crystal. So you got to pretty much know what you're doing. Although there's people that have had a lot of good luck with just taking granite and grinding that up and using that as a fertilizer.
Yeah.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
In Greece, they do that a lot.
Okay, can you hear me? I'm back.
Yeah.
I'm back. I'm back and I'm bad.
I see ya.
I'm back and I'm bad. Okay, hang on just a second. Let me pull up my graphic again because when I got tossed out, it took it away. Here we go. Preparation 12. There we go. So now this is showing they actually have a unique, special way of packing these things into the ground. They have to be spaced in a certain way to, I guess, allow the different organisms in the soil to go into the horns to counteract and interact with what they're putting in there. The BD 501 is crushed quartz crystal for radiating light, works in tandem with 500. It's polar opposite. And unlike the grounding force of BD 500, 501 is concerned with the above ground energies and is used to produce photosynthesis in leaves to ensure optimal fruiting. Have I grossed out the chat room yet? It interacts with light and warmth.
Good bacteria.
Which we all are.
Yes, true.
So they make a talcum powder out of this crystal, and then they shove it into the horns, and mix it in, and it becomes a fermented, like a paste, and then it's like toothpaste when they pull it out of the horn, and then that gets mixed into the water and sprinkled during a descending moon. Okay. Now, you all were laughing about the cow's horns, and Jules said, what gave Steiner this idea? Okay. And Lori said, why cow horns? So I said, okay, let Let me help you with that. You know.
What's interesting is that in the traditional depiction of the main Slavic god, he's always depicted holding a cow's horn filled with wine.
That's
and he's
interesting.
wearing a cow's head with the horns.
That's what I thought too.
Okay.
All right.
He's an Egyptian god too.
BD501 specifically works to release cosmic energies as the earth deeply exhales in spring. And if you look at a cow, it is certainly an earthly animal, Jules. It is solidly grounded in its stance and gait and feeds with its
I only asked you so you could tell everybody.
Okay. I'm picking on you anyway because it's fun. All right.
It's all right. I've got broad shoulders. I will take all the blame.
Let's see. The cow's very being expresses its strong bond with earth. But there's also another reason to use the horns of a cow versus the horns of a bull. Steiner felt that when it comes to the earth, we obviously want to optimize on female, mothering, and fertile energies. Hence the preference for also using cow horns bearing birthing rings. The horn of the cow has a far greater blood flow through it than that of a bull. 80% of the blood flow of a cow goes through its horns, despite there being no servicing there of any other vital organ. So the cow horn is specifically imbued with a richness of life-giving blood. And this practice is, now Jules, correct me if I'm wrong, but the article said that the Aborigines use the cow's horns as well. And so do other indigenous tribes throughout the world. This is an ancient technology or an ancient practice that goes way, way back. And so it wasn't just coming from Steiner. So the article said. So the article said. All right. Now there's one.
They have multiple uses for them.
Yeah.
They have multiple uses for them.
Now you see how they're putting these in the ground? They're putting these in a circular fashion, the crystal ones. I don't know what the intent is, but there's some type of ritual involved in this routine, and I just couldn't get the information on it. But they're burying them differently than they did the ones with the manure. You see, these are put in like plugs. You see how they're one end is stuck down in the earth and the other one's up and up. Different process for 500 versus 501. Beats me. I'm not clear on what that is, but I guess if you watch that hour-and-a-half video that Gary gave us, that's in the YouTube description, you'll get more information. We'll let Jeanie address this one.
I don't know.
This is this next preparation isn't so much about treating the soil as it is about honoring the earth. It's a much more symbolic gesture. It's almost a ritual of not sacrifice, but a ritual of thankfulness and gratitude. It also provides a certain degree of protection. Jeanie, do you want to talk about this, or do you want me to read it off here and then you want to add to it, or how do you want to handle that?
Well, you're doing a great job. I've never done it. I've just read about it, and I find it pretty interesting because it is about intent, and it is about gathering protection, having protection on the entire farm, and the radius can go beyond just where you garden. It can go into the forest or over your ponds, over your animals, over your entire home, you know. And it includes this powdery gold and frankincense and myrrh. And then that's really about the extent that I know about it. I'm in the process of ordering it, and I want to do it for the new year, just for protection of.
It's done once a year, either on New Year's Eve or on Three Kings Day, because the three ingredients go back to biblical times and even esotericism, where they're celebrating the birth of Christ. Then the gifts from the wise men gold. It's called the Three Kings preparation of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And during the late, I guess it was, he says here, can you see the text here?
No, we're not seeing your screen there.
Okay. Am I still doing a screen share or I'm not?
Nope. Nope.
No.
Okay. So I got thrown out of that too, eh?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let me get back in there real quick. Sorry about that, you guys. I don't know why I got thrown out. I just had a hiccup.
Excuse me.
I had a hiccup.
Welcome to technology.
Sorry about that. Oh, yes. Okay. So let me bring up the gold powder, of which Dalibor knows all about. And
Wormus.
I've made my own repeatedly. It's a really simple process, and it's I've experimented with it, but I haven't done this yet. I haven't used it in agriculture.
Well, let me give you the history about the Three Kings preparation in terms of biodynamics. You can see it up on the screen. I'm going to read it for you. During the late 50s and 60s, a German farmer named Hugo Elbe, greatly concerned about post-nuclear bombing and radioactive effects on the destruction of what he considered the unseen elemental world, created a biodynamic preparation that he believed would mitigate the damage that was done by nuclear explosions and the damage that he felt was done to the Earth's organisms. He felt this preparation would bring the elementals back into an equilibrium. He called it the Three Kings preparation of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. When suitably prepared, serves as a sacrificial gift and symbol for the recognition of the working of spiritual beings in the earthly sphere, primarily the unseen world of the elementals. Its organic composition is well known, centuries-old traditions used by humans for holistic healing and oil, and deeply rooted in esoteric teachings as well as Christianity, reflecting gifts brought by the three wise men. On New Year's Eve, some biodynamic farmers, not all of them do this, but some do, they grind by hand gold, frankincense, and myrrh chunks, and to create a perfumed spray to bless and protect the boundaries of their planting fields.
I've used that before, but in a different capacity, never like what we're going to use it now.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Gold represents wisdom-filled power and the wisdom and intelligence of the past. Frankincense, an aromatic resin from the boswellia tree, is a universal symbol for intuition, a symbol of the world ether weaving around us. It is a devotional offering as a gesture or intention of sacrifice in which the spirit is living. It also symbolizes the transience of the presence. Myrrh, another tree resin used by Egyptians for embalming many, many years ago, is a symbol of the victory of life over death and also of the forces of the present pointing into the future. So on New Year's Eve, they mix these three pouches, and it's like a sandwich bag full of material. They mix all this together in these pouches, and they stir it for, what is it, Jeanie, 20 minutes or so? Maybe longer?
I think it's an hour.
An hour.
Yeah.
So they do it in the vortex. They use their hand and stir it in the traditional vortex. We walk, and here's their incantation. So they walk the perimeter of the field. So you know how Jeanie has these planting fields, or Grandpa Brian has these planting fields? They walk around the outer perimeter of these fields and sprinkle the water as they're walking with an incantation. We walk with hearts full of love and light, acknowledging our responsibility to stewarding the earth, making a commitment to the beings of this place, and giving them this spiritual sustenance to create magic and wonder in this place. Also to be noted, Hugo Elbe, a contemporary of Steiner and designer of this preparation, speaks of the significance of water in the process, Dalibor.
Well, it's also interesting that Elbe is the name of a German river.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
He's named after the River Elbe, huh?
Yes, yes.
He said, from his perspective, and I quoted him here as best I could, in the context of human evolution, the time when it was spiritually appropriate to make burnt offerings must be held to belong to the past. Appropriate for our present time and therefore effective are offerings made with water. This is the reason why a water-based form of the sacrificial substances belonging to the Three Kings preparation had to be found. So they take a great deal of, they take it seriously.
You know? Okay, let me just give my take on this. It's not about the Three Kings preparation. It's only about the water. You don't actually have to add any of these ingredients to the soil itself. If you just vortex that water with the individual components, the frankincense, the myrrh, and then the gold, and do that individually, you could simply filter the water after each one of these things, each one of these mixtures, and then just use the water, because the water has its own memory and it retains the energy of all the stuff that's been mixed in with it. So you don't actually have to expend a lot of money. You could reuse that over and over again, those three preparations, or use them for other purposes without actually having to put them into the soil itself.
Right.
Can I say something, please?
You spray it in the air, and number two, they're not really that expensive. They're expensive when you don't have any money, yeah. But if you have a little bit of do-re-mi, they're affordable if you buy them in the pack. Now, I've bought these before, and I've used them as oils with another carrier oil, and I just anoint my whole head with them. And I've done that for years now. Yeah.
Can I say something, please?
Sure, Jules, go ahead.
It's all about intention. The whole thing is there is too many rules. I don't work with any of that anymore. I watched my dad plant by the moon, and I got the message that you don't have to do that anymore. It's all your own intent. This is the way I've worked in my garden for many years. Of course, I used all the mulch. I used cow manure sometimes. I use chicken manure, but I don't go through all of the rules and the incantations. It's just my bare feet on the land, coming from my heart with my intention. That's how I ever plant. It's about being simple, because there is the energy has shifted now. The energy isn't when it was after a nuclear war. It isn't after, it's not 1920s. We're in the new Earth's here. It's been here since 2012, and it's your intent.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Okay.
Totally agree that,
So
that's too much mumbo jumbo with the the
rules, too many rules. Now I know it works because I've been involved with it, but I don't want to do all that labor and too much going this way and then it's got to go that way. From my heart and my intention, from all of my work that I've done, I don't have to go through all that process. Anyone can do it. I'm not saying don't do it.
So you have the ability,
we know that. We know
what
that.
I'm hearing here is that you're saying is that you have the ability with intent to replace all of the natural Earth's organic materials.
Well, you're now working with the elementals because they're here freely.
I can look at a pile of dry soil that's dead pretty much because it's been farmed out the yin yang, and it's dry and it's cakey and it's powdery and there's no life to it. And with intent, I can make that soil change back into its original form, where all the
correct, because it's your intent and you're putting out that intention. I've watched so many times with people what we say. It's what you say. Everything is what you say. So if you think it's shit, well, guess what? That soil's shit. So with your intent and with your vibration and from your heart and working with the elementals and working with Mother Earth, you'll get it to work.
Well, you know what? I agree with you in that I believe that it's that plus everything I just said. I believe
you don't have to believe me. I'm just saying how I work.
What I'm saying is that for me, when I'm working in my garden, I have a lot of intent. But if I don't give back what I've taken out from Mother, and I don't give her back some of the ingredients that makes her live and breathe, my intent alone won't do that.
Yeah, but there is such a thing as biological transmutation.
with the material.
My garden is full of intent because of the biodynamic, if you want to call it that. The biosphere that I work with is in my garden because I've created that from my own intentions. Right?
So you don't use mulch or fertilizer?
That's in my garden. The trees there drop leaves.
How did it get there?
Because I planted the tree.
Because you put it there.
Yeah, I put the tree there because I put the tree there. And so I plant. So I use what I've got. I'm working with it. I'm working with it.
You never bring in truckloads of mulch, and you never bring in any kind of tree branches or flower. You don't use any kind of compost at all?
I get sugarcane mulch from my neighbour.
You do use mulch? Okay,
yeah, because
you are putting some of that back in.
Is it red sugarcane or green sugarcane? Can I ask?
Oh, goodness, I don't know.
Okay, I was curious.
Yeah.
Is all because I have red sugarcane, but I want to get green sugarcane.
Yeah, but I don't go and get a cow's horn and put manure in it. I just go and pick up a plonk of manure. That's my gold, and I just put it there, right?
Yeah.
It's through my own intentions. It is my own intent, right?
Yeah,
but I'm not saying those things didn't work. Yeah, everyone's seen my garden, and that's not because I've gone and genuflect at the end of the corner and gone Hail Mary, and it's with my own.
Not all of these preparations are talked about in the training video. As a matter of fact, that Gary sent, they focus on those other 6 preparations of the different kinds of flowers, and they don't really emphasize 500 and 501. Or 500 and 501. That the cow's horns, that's an individual farmer by farmer decision as to whether or not they want to honor that tradition or that practice. It's those 6 other jars of the different organic materials that they're plugging into the compost is what most of them follow. So I was just giving you the broad overview of what different farmers utilize. And some of them don't use that 3 Kings ritual at all.
Right.
So it just depends. Over the years, it's changed.
Depends
but
on the farmer.
That's right.
Depends on the farmer.
Depends on their own intent.
Right.
Yeah.
And my intent.
We also have the calendar. Go ahead, Delbert. I'm sorry. I can't hear
the only intent that I had when I went into organic gardening was to be able to know with 100% certainty what went into produce the produce that I consume. That's
what went on it. Yeah.
That's so my basic tenets was to avoid the use of any kind of extraneous like fertilizer or any extraneous insecticides or pesticides or anything for that matter. Yeah, no chemicals whatsoever.
Right.
I used the grouchy method. As propounded in the film Back to Eden, featuring Powell Grouchy himself. And that basically features the use of copious amounts of mulch, which I got from my parents' woods. They bought themselves a wood chipper, and I just did it the wrong way, even though the next year it was very productive. And I did it all without the use of any kind of fertilizer or any kind of insecticides or any of that stuff. That was my main intent.
I like the Back to Eden process or whatever they do, because that's what we were intending to do here is Back to Eden. We just haven't gotten that far yet. We're just still working towards it. But I wanted to ask Jules, how long have you lived on that property, and how long did those banana trees take to grow? And just
banana trees don't
beautiful.
Yeah, we bought the property in 1995 and we put the jacarandas on there first. And when we were in our shop, we just bought all the the food that didn't get eaten or that was, the produce that we would put that on the jacarandas because we had no water there then. And so then when we moved out there in 2001, we started putting a lot of that on there. So that's how long a lot of that's been there, being we've been, and it changes, and we're about to put some new plants down as well. So it's I've just noticed in the last lot of crops we put down, I chopped and dropped my arrowroot, and it went onto the ground over the top of our soil, and it really worked really well. I have a lot of spinach and kale and stuff like that in there. So, you know, chopping and dropping is a good method to use, but it's not like I'm not using any specific
Another
I
thing
just use my intention.
Another thing I would also like to add is, a lot of these pesticides and herbicides are used to combat weeds. I should point out that there's no such thing as a weed. Every single plant that grows as a weed is actually an herb, and every single one of those has its own unique use. So I would say, don't try to combat the weeds. No, work with them. And if some pop up, well, whatever.
And there's things you can do about the insect control too. Like I planted basil with my tomatoes. I planted mint with my peppers. I used mums, French mums, in between all of my container pots to drive away those blasted moths. And they also attract bees that helps you pollinate. So there's all kinds of natural things that you can do to put into your garden that help you maintain that balance for sure.
Yeah, and I've also
one of the things that I like, Dalibor, was that video you sent me. Now you're right; it was full of it was a Christian speaking, and he was following Christian tradition. But he did what Gary's doing. It took him about 2 or 3 years to build layer after layer after layer of compost, and he used all kinds of tree bark and natural plant cuttings, and he was basically building his own soil back up.
But you can use anything. You could even use cardboard, newspaper, or anything else.
Cardboard and
see,
newspaper.
I've also added the only fertilizer that I used was rabbit dung, since I've always had a rabbit in my life, and they produce a lot of dung.
Excellent.
And that's some of the best stuff that you can actually put on your crops.
Lucky dung.
They're not M&Ms, right, Dalibor?
No,
not M&Ms.
I'm going to get me some Lucky dung. Listen, it's 10:30. It's 10:30, and we could go on and on. This is a lot, but
oh my gosh,
we didn't even get to the biodynamic calendar, and Jeanie has the book. And
that's okay, and that's the reason why I got the book is to go by the lunar. I wanted to know the retrogrades and the way it flows on harvesting, planting, all kinds of stuff, and it's compelling, and I enjoyed reading it, and it talks a little bit about beekeeping and some other stuff with regards to how to keep the bugs away, the good bugs versus the bad bugs.
Yeah.
And there's quite a number of good information in it. And as far as the three kings go, I'm not a religious person at all. So I'm a pagan. So it has nothing to do with it
any
goes kind of religion or
right.
It goes way back before the Jews. It goes way
That's
back
what it means.
before.
It's country folk. That's all pagan means is country folk.
Well,
I know. Well, I am a pagan. I'm not religious. I'm not a Christian. I'm not. I'm not any of that.
Well,
and,
the German,
go back.
German man who created that preparation came from a Christian background, but
he was Jesuit. He was a Jesuit.
Yes, but the Druids, used frankincense, myrrh, and
which is my background. I'm Druid. I'm I'm Viking, Druid, all of that, Celtic, and so I'm not Christian.
Yeah, that's why he called it Three Kings. But the Egyptians used it for they used these products for.
That's where I originally found it years ago, and I was using it. I was using it when I was sick I had cancer, and I was sick, and I couldn't walk. I was using a cane, and I got healthy, you know.
Yeah.
So it's very important to use oils and essential oils and all of that, and I believe in that because I've been through it, you know, quite a few times.
Well, I'll tell you, that calendar, Jeanie, I looked at it, and I did bring up pictures, but we've run out of time. But folks, take a look at that 1.5 hour training video that's in our YouTube description. Scroll about halfway through it, and you'll see them working with the calendar, and she's teaching the students how. You would not believe how complex those calendars are. And I'm
very compelling, very compelling. There's other little shorter things you can find on YouTube where it just goes with that specific month. Like they had it for last month, they're going to have it for this month. Just go into YouTube and it'll be right there for you. So you don't have to buy this. You don't have to buy it. It's right there.
Hold it up, Jeanie. Hold it up real quick. Hold it up. Yeah, Maria Thune. That's the top of the line right there. That's the best one out there. And she has mapped out specific times of the month that you plant certain types of plants. So I'm sitting here going, oh my God, it's hard enough for me just to get my peppers and my peas and my carrots in there. You know,
again, that's kind of complicated. That's kind of complicated. The main thing to keep in mind is that the 6th of January is what's known as the apogee, which means that's the point at which the Earth is actually closest to the sun.
Right.
So 6 months after that, 6 months after that exactly is when the Earth is closest to the sun. So that's all you got to keep in mind.
Yeah. Well, Gary, did you have any final words, Gary? I mean, was this pretty much cover what you would hope we would cover for biodynamics? So we just giving people a feel for what's involved here. But you can see now,
you don't have to be. Yeah, you don't have to be very specific. I'm just all over the place, really. I'm only just started getting into it, and my main thing is permaculture. So permaculture is 100%. And just let it do it itself. You know, nature is the perfect way to do it. So all I'm doing is just helping nature, and it does it itself. So I'm just looking at Steiner just to add to it. It's just like a hobby type of thing. It's just to see what's going to happen. Like I put copper wire into the ground as well. You know, so it helps with the magnetism, and it puts copper in the soil as well.
I went out front and I dug up all the worms I could find, and I added, I don't know, a dozen worms into every single one of my container pots. I put in about 2 tablespoons of crushed quartz crystal into each one of my containers. I use organic soil, potting soil, nothing but organic potting soil. I make my own compost now, and I'm very careful what I do. I use a blender in the kitchen to help break it down faster because, you know, our growing cycle here is kind of weird. So I'll take a blender and I'll take eggshells and leftover green beans and leftover peas. I'm very careful on the citrus. I don't use a lot of citrus, so I use just a little. I put all that in there, and I will buy some lime and throw some lime in there too, you know. And I mix that into my compost.
I blend my eggs, you know, that's just shells. So I collect them, and once a month I cook them for 20 minutes, and then I blend them into a powder, and then I add them into the soil and the compost and everything.
There you go.
Smart.
I put eggs in mine, whole eggs, and people have got a plant, and they've gone to transplant it, and here's the roots in the bottom of the eggshell.
Yeah. And if you do, like Susie Q's saying in here, if you do use your rabbit pellets, you know, and if you have any kind of that kind of, now I don't have animals, so I can't do that in a townhouse. They just, you know, and I don't use rubies.
Well, you should. Well, one thing I should point out: you should never use human sourced dung of any kind, because there's studies that have proven that especially
that goes to gold.
Yeah, you should never use that. No, because there's actual DNA inside your own dung, and that can affect the plant's DNA and make it produce substances that are actually deadly, specific to your DNA. So
But you
that's why
can urinate on your plants, though.
Oh yeah, you can, because urine is sterile. Urine doesn't contain any DNA.
That's right. And it's a signature that knows for your plant. There's actually in the Anastasia books, the ringing cedars. You drink the nettle tea, and then you urine put it onto the seeds, and then it reads your actual DNA, and that plant's actually for you. I mean, that's just another way of. I don't do it.
Do that too.
Guys would have an easy time watering their garden, wouldn't they?
Well, I used to keep a watering can around, and instead of going into the bathroom, I used to do it into the watering can, then add water, and then water the
citrus.
It's sterile.
That's right.
It's sterile.
Yeah, well, the citrus.
Liquid gold, it's called. Liquid gold.
Until you, it's not.
I have a great idea. Drink a bunch of beer and just go out there and have a party at night and water your plants.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Water your plants.
Yeah.
That's what all men do with their citrus trees. That's what they do.
Yep.
I got two citrus trees.
I'm going to be careful.
We're losing Lori.
We are really going downhill quick.
No, that's what we're meant to have fun. Come on, lighten up.
Yes.
Yes.
On that note,
one beer, and I bet you I could water your whole garden.
All right, guys. Final thoughts here. Any final thoughts? We're coming to the end of the show. It's time to wrap this up.
Enjoy. Gardening is to enjoy.
Yeah.
Enjoy. Table.
Yes.
Well,
it is.
All right.
And
when you're
the
trying
fruits.
to reinstitute a community, and you're trying to, these countries like Egypt and others, they really do rely heavily on those 6 components, those 6 mixtures to help them, because they can treat tons of soil without using any chemicals. And yes, they use their intent and their rituals, but take a look at that video on Egypt. It's only 10 minutes long, and you'll see what they're doing, and it's fantastic.
It's
If
excellent.
Yeah,
you just
good
get more
stuff.
people to participate, we'd be
It'll
able to.
give
This
you
is the future, is growing your own garden, because corporations aren't going to be able to feed you with crappy food, because they're all going down. So start your garden. That's what I said 2.5 years ago. It starts in a garden.
Yeah, except I would add my 2 crowns to that. I would say don't be too ambitious if you start on this, because like I said, I have 6 fruit trees on my property. I started out with a garden that was 6 by 14 meters, and that was way too much for one person. That's too much.
I have to share. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're getting loopy. Now listen. I get.
What's so funny?
I'm going to start laughing, and you're not going to.
Look,
I don't know. We're not in on the
comment.
joke.
I have to share this comment. I am dying from the comment. Let her share it.
Share it.
Okay. So first of all, this comment is not coming from anybody in the chat. This is a private comment that just came over. And it's my sister, and she says, "You can pee on your plants, but don't pee on your friends." She just wanted to add a little wisdom there. She sure did. Thanks for sharing that, Kel.
That's very
good on you, Kel.
All right. Yeah, good on you.
I lost it on Scotty explains why I pee on
the bucket. Yep. And on that note, everyone, thank you all for being here. Thank you for all being in chat. Thank you for the ones that weren't in chat and still able to make a comment. I love that, Kelly. Thank you. Gary, thank you so much. Jeannie, such a pleasure. Joel starts in a garden.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Love you all.
And Gary, thanks for bringing
Rose to take you.
I really appreciate it.
There you go.
I'll be talking to you about that worm farm, okay?
Thanks, Gary. Nice to meet you.
All right. Bye-bye. Have a great night. Thank you.